I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Out of my eyes! I never misspelled anything! Not one time! One time!
Welcome back to my pre-1970 series that I've been doing all year, every single month. And I thought it was time to switch it up a little bit and talk about a film that is great in a different way. And that film is Plan 9 from Outer Space, directed by the famed Ed Wood. Released in 1959 officially, this film went into relative obscurity until film critic Michael Medved and his brother wrote a book about the Golden Turkeys, films they considered the worst of all time, and they named this film the #1. It played on late-night television for years and finally reached superior cult status when Tim Burton made the film Ed Wood, starring Johnny Depp, which explored that director's home life and his work life. And now it's pretty much one of the best, worst movies ever made. And if you've ever seen it, you can understand why, because Ed Wood was really the original Tommy Wiseau.
One thing sure, Inspector Clay's dead. Murdered. And somebody's responsible.
Both of them proved to be fairly inept when it came to actually crafting a good film, but their drive and their passion was so intense that they got their films made. But what you can say about Wiseau and The Room is that he planned a film that he could actually make with the money he had. He didn't try to make a science fiction epic. Ed Wood, he tried to make films that he didn't have the budget to make, but he made them anyway because passion. You gotta do it, you know? This film is about aliens that have come to Earth because humanity is gonna destroy itself. We've created technology that's just too destructive, and we are the danger, and the aliens are here to let us know that that's the case. And in so doing, they want to raise the dead, have Bela Lugosi involved in some way, shape, or form, have like a vampire and an undead zombie walking around, because that's how they prove their message, I guess. But this film opens with an announcer of sorts who is actually a psychic who had a show back in the day that Ed Wood was a fan of, and he's setting up the film for us, and he's clearly reading from a cue card. His eyes are actually moving from left to right. It's the most apparent teleprompter/cue card I've ever seen in a feature film. And that's our first hint at just how oblivious Ed Wood was to the technical presentation of a film, in particular the sets. Don't even get me started on the sets. They look like they were made with construction paper and Elmer's glue. An early scene with the two pilots in their apparent airplane despite sitting on household furniture shows a UFO pass by. You can see the reflection of the boom mic as well as the script sitting in the pilot's lap. This is what I watch these movies for, moments like that, little nuggets like that. That being said, I have to give credit where credit's due. Apparently, this film was originally meant to be broadcast in the 1:85 aspect ratio, the widescreen aspect ratio, and most DVD transfers of this movie have it in 4:3 full screen. So the common excuse for this is that certain things were meant to be cropped out of the image that Ed Wood never expected to be seen, and that's why you can see the script in his lap or the boom mic. But I'm going to guess that the director who made sets out of construction paper, I know it's actually like wood, but it still looks like a papier-mâché arts and crafts set from elementary school. I'm just going to assume that the man who made that film probably didn't really care about the script being in the person's lap. I'm not going to make any excuses for him. Something else this film commonly does is things that might appear more expensive or perhaps violent or could be considered difficult to accomplish often occur off-screen. Mostly people screaming and dying, like this scene. And this scene, which is easily my biggest laugh in the entire film.
Confused by his great loss, the old man left that home, never to return again.
Apparently, he just walked off screen and got smashed by a car right after attending his wife's funeral. This guy is very unlucky. So Bela Lugosi is in this film briefly because he was actually becoming good friends with Ed Wood, and this was his last credited film before his death. This footage was going to be for another project that Ed Wood was working on, but he decided to use that footage and incorporate it into this film to make it be Bela Lugosi's last film, to draw in other actors and potential funds for the movie. At the same time, though, he used a stunt double to complete Bela Lugosi's performance, and it's just a guy walking around holding his cape to his face! You can't make this shit up, man. You just can't. It's one of the reasons the film does have an odd, kind of obscure charm to it, because despite how terrible it really is, you have to give it to the guy for completing his film and getting it released. Now, the dialogue in Plan 9 is a thing to behold, but particularly the editing of conversations. Quite often a scene will cut to a shot that is actually from the same setup, and so it just looks like a jump cut. It's truly awful, and there are so many moments like that, in particular these moments.
Pretty dark out there. Once you get beyond the range of those lights, you won't be able to see your hand in front of your face.
I will get one of the flashlight from the patrol car.
Okay, be careful, Clay.
I'm a big boy now, Johnny.
Don't forget that torn nightgown and the scratched feet.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
We're greeted with editing like this throughout the entire picture. There are so many sequences that cut into other shots that just don't meld. And you just have to imagine Ed Wood standing behind that camera thinking about how much he wants this film to be completed and not caring so much about the actual quality. He just wants to get that shot. And he apparently edited the film as well himself. And so you can also see him in the editing room, like piecing it together. And it's like I said, there's a charm to it, but it's purely from a cult perspective. Like, you can watch the film with friends and enjoy yourself, but it's pretty awful. Something else that seems mixed up amongst the dialogue is the way people describe the UFOs that appear in the film. Like the pilot calling it a cigar.
I saw a flying saucer.
Saucer? You mean the kind from up there?
Yeah, its counterpart. It was shaped like a huge cigar.
That looks nothing like a cigar, actually, but, you know, whatever. Ed Wood apparently bought an actual model kit for UFOs and used those for the special effects. Speaking of special effects, this film contains one of the most monotonous scenes of UFOs versus the military I've ever seen. It goes on and on, it never ends. And during this insanely long sequence, we have this man who is obviously standing in front of the sky. That's the backdrop to sky. That's a real sky. It's not like a wall, like with clear paint on it. So we finally get a look at the aliens in the film, and of course they look like human beings wearing some cheap costume store outfits, and the way they greet each other is they sort of slap their shoulders when they say hello. But this guy looks like he had just done it 100 times, and he just wants to go home because he's drunk as hell, and he's just done with this shooting day. He doesn't want to be there.
Your space commander has returned from Earth.
So now Kingpin, I mean the Living Dead, and the Vampire Woman, as well as the stunt double, are on the scene, and they're walking so slowly, I mean half the speed of Michael Myers, to the point of lethargy. This film can get very boring and extremely repetitive. There are sequences that are hilarious and very strangely watchable. There's sort of a perverse, dreamlike trance that this film can put you in because it's just so bad and you just kind of sit back like in awe, similar to The Room. But there's a lot of parts to the film where you just want to go to bed. But the film picks up quickly because there's one cop in particular who's very frightened, and he doesn't want to go near any of these supposed Living Dead and or alien sites. He doesn't want to go near these locations.
Yeah, we shouldn't investigate any further without the permission of next of kin.
Let's go get it. How? I see what you mean. The gravestone's down there.
Well, let's go down and find out whose grave it is.
How?
By going down and finding out.
Are you sure you mean that, Lieutenant?
If I didn't mean it, I wouldn't have said it.
Scared?
Well, why do I always get hooked up with these spook details? Monsters, graves, bodies. Oh, all right.
And what continuously saves the film for me is, I'm just going to call him Kingpin. Because this face that he wears as he walks around is just priceless. It really looks like there should be sounds coming out of it. If I'm being completely honest, it's actually kind of hard to follow the film because the story doesn't really make any sense. It's just a bunch of sequences that feel like Ed Wood wanted to make a horror scene here. He wanted a scene with a vampire lady making a weird face, or something with Bela Lugosi. He wanted to make a movie really bad. But he wasn't as concerned with making a narrative that made sense or that felt like it flowed. So we finally get to the main message of the film, where the pilot and some other guys are on board this alien spacecraft, and the aliens just unload with all of this storytelling about how humanity's destroying itself and we're all going to blow up because we're eventually going to create this bomb in the future that's going to destroy everything. And I guess by raising the dead and this vampire lady and Bela Lugosi's stunt double, they somehow were trying to communicate this to us, which makes no real sense, really, at all. I mean, it makes no sense. But it's damn entertaining, that's for sure.
Oh, I assure you no harm has come to her. Would you like to see?
Next time you try that, I won't aim at the board.
You're a headstrong young man.
Soon, one of the worst fights I've ever seen happens. Most of it is obscured by smoke in one unbroken wide shot where you can't see anything. It's just, you hear scuffling noises and loud music and there's smoke. And their ship blows up and the humans are back on Earth and they're just talking about how, man, it was interesting with those aliens. But really the one thing about the film that is probably the best in regards to just how hilarious it is the narration. The opening announcer continues to narrate the entire film. He says, "My friends," like a billion times. The things he says is just blatant explaining of everything that's on screen. It's like it's a story being told to a young child. It's definitely the best part of the film.
Rockets were quickly set up. Colonel Tom Edwards, in charge of saucer field activities, was to make the greatest decision of his career. He made that decision. Colonel Edwards gave the signal to fire.
But overall, this film has a cult status for a reason. You have to give it to Ed Wood for making it, for getting out there and doing it. He accomplished more than like 90% of hopeful filmmakers. He actually went out, got his film made, and had it distributed. Despite how terrible it is, he worked on it, and he got it made. There's a lot of great movies I want to talk about for the rest of the year, but I do need to talk about some films like this too, because it's just fun, and there's tons of older films that are actually kind of hard to get through. Like, this is one of the ones where you can watch it and have fun. A really terrible movie from like 1940 that isn't even entertaining like this, that's tough to watch. This, however, it has something to it. There's a quality to it you can't really replicate. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Please continue to watch more reviews, which will be coming to you very soon. As always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmannized.